Exactly. Our
Well, welcome to WEAG.tv then.
That's right. So for many of these folks, it might be their first time even knowing there was a WEAG.tv. But thousands of people have found out about it over the past couple weeks as we've been streaming GCN and plenty of services and sermons. It's been pretty neat to see, for sure. That has been really cool. Yeah. So here we are, Shane. New year. Yeah. New season, new sermons, new series, new everything.
Yeah, it's been exciting. We had a great first Sunday of the new year. Baptisms were celebrated, people declaring their faith in public and going public with their faith. It was amazing. It was a great Sunday of worship combined here in our worship center. It was incredible. We just saw God show up in so many ways and so many people's lives transformed. Too many to count and too many stories to tell.
Yeah, yes, it was pretty amazing. You could just feel the energy in the room for sure, and really sense how God was moving the lives of so many people this past Sunday morning.
Yeah, for sure.
And for those of you that might have missed it, you might have caught the replay of the sermon. Also, something new with the live Q&A is we aired the sermon right before this as well.
Cool.
So folks were able to tune into WEAG.tv or to our YouTube channel and be able to see it over the past half an hour plus as well. And for those of you that missed that, it's actually replaying right after this too. So we are just making it available.
Many opportunities to view it.
Yes.
Well, thank you for all of you who are viewing those. And I hope you find those helpful, and even more so today. So thanks for spending time with us.
Definitely. And also new with this show is we finally have a name. Finally have a name. The show has a name.
It's not the Jim and Shane show?
It's not the Jim and Shane show.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay.
We tested that, and we could conclude that ratings were just going to plummet.
It's not Dumb and Dumber? What is it?
That one was already taken.
So the new name is?
A whole bunch of copyright issues. Beyond a Sermon.
Beyond a Sermon.
Beyond a Sermon.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. So every week we go beyond a sermon.
It's not just, hopefully people get that it's not a sermon here.
Right.
That's not our goal.
No.
We want to talk way past that. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
It is pretty awesome. So speaking of names, Shane, this is Shane Schlesman, by the way, speaking of names. He's our lead pastor, for those that don't know.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Jim Washok, Communications Director. We had a name with a series, Living Legacy.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting name.
Yeah.
It's even there on the screen behind us. What inspired the name Living Legacy for this series?
Well, first of all, it's been our 50th year anniversary inspired it.
Woohoo!
This year, West End Assembly of God turns 50, so we're our 50th anniversary. I turned 50 as well this year, so you know,
how about that?
I'm like as old as the church, or the church is as old as me, which is really scary. It has aches and pains and all those things. But 50 years of ministry is incredible, and those of you who've known our ministry or experienced what we do here in some way, form, or fashion around Richmond, but not just around Richmond, around the world. And as I think about the fact that 50 years, we have only had 3 senior pastors in 50 years.
That's amazing.
And all 3 of us still attend West End Assembly of God. So we are surrounded by legends, and we all get the idea of legends. And I was thinking, but that really makes it about the past. If we talk about creating a legacy, that talks about the future. So I really wanted something unique, and God put this on my heart, that we would learn how to continuously live in legacy, so thus living legacy.
All right. Well, very good. That's very creative. I love it. So, when we approach our 50th birthday in March, please tell me there's going to be cake. We've got to have cake.
We will have a big cake.
All right.
That our founding pastor, Bob Roden, will pop out of or something.
Okay.
I don't know. No, we have so many incredible things. I said it at the end of our service Sunday. We have so many great things planned for our 50th year anniversary that if I told you, you wouldn't believe me.
All right.
And plus, I don't know them all, so I can't tell them all yet.
It'll be a surprise, like any birthday. There's surprises.
They're evolving all the time. In fact, even today, we just came from a meeting where we talked about it again. I've met with our founding pastor, former senior pastor. I've been meeting with past leaders, future younger leaders, our current leaders. So I'm really excited about what God's bringing together for us to celebrate, not just in March, but I think we start right away with this series, Living Legacy, as a way to celebrate, but more importantly, to learn as a church what it means to live in a way that creates legacy for the future, respects the legacies, the legends from the past, and lives continually in legacy. So that's where we're going with this series. I'm very excited about it.
Very good. Well, let's hop right to it, because you opened up this week with a sermon entitled Stay in Your Lane.
Yeah.
And so your sermon very much kind of approximated a journey. And you took us through a journey over a couple verses within Hebrews, and that brought us to sort of a destination. So kind of like using a GPS, where you go and put your destination in, and then it kind of directs you how to get there by working backwards to where you're at and so forth. We want to do the same sort of thing. Cool. We're going to kind of go a little bit in reverse of the sermon. So you'll definitely want to catch the sermon, in case you missed it, to kind of see it in forward motion, but that will kind of help us back into what we need to do to be prepared for this journey. And so let's start off with this verse, Shane, because Hebrews 12, right?
Yeah,
I think it was
Hebrews
Hebrews 12. It said, "Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." It ends with pioneer and perfecter of faith. What did Paul mean by that? What are those words, pioneer and perfecter of faith?
Yeah, well, first let me just say about the title, because it's an unusual title, Stay in Your Lane.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of you who sent me the Geico commercial over and over Sunday. There, you can Google it. There's just Google, I think it's Geico.
Okay.
It's where it's a tattoo artist where he finds out he's like one of the tattoo artists in all of the city. He goes, "Don't you mean one of the best?"
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's that commercial. Just Google tattoo artist, Stay in Your Lane, and you'll see. But thank you to everybody who sent me that. It's hysterical. But we focused on two phrases in that passage in Hebrews 12. And the first phrase was the race marked out for you, and the second phrase was fixing your eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. So to answer your question, what does it mean to be a pioneer of faith?
Yeah.
To go to the end, and where we ended the sermon and where we were going was this, that Jesus is really the only one who can say that. You think about it, of all the faiths that are out there, and I'm not discounting any other religions or other faiths, what you may believe, but I am saying that Christianity is the one unique faith that celebrates a king who died for us. Many faiths celebrate that.
Yeah.
But Christianity is the only one who resurrected from the dead and is still alive today. Now, you could say, well, yeah, but that's what you say. Easy for you to say that. But if you really research the resurrection, there's something to that. And beyond anything I could ever describe, it's not a blind faith that I have actually in that. There are over 450 witnesses of it. And there are not just the Bible, but other historical references. No one contests whether Jesus existed.
Yeah.
What people contest is, did he really rise from the dead? Because if he really rose from the dead, that makes our faith something that permeates the whole world. And I think our world would love for that to be true. They don't always all believe it. But Jesus is the pioneer of our faith. He's the one who paid for it in his death. And he's the one who offers new life because he's still alive. That is like no other pioneer that exists. And if you're going to be a pioneer, if you're going to be somebody who you want to follow, I would never want a guide to guide me up Mount Everest if he had never gone or she had never gone up Mount Everest themselves.
Yeah, that would
like,
not be good.
hey, it's kind of like the commercial I was just talking about. Like, hey, yeah, I don't know where we're going, but hey, it's be my first time.
Follow me.
It'll be fun. Let's go. Like, no, people die trying to summit Everest. So, yeah, no thanks. You would want your guide to be somebody who's gone there, who's not just been there, done that, as in the cliche, but who in real life went there. Jesus went to excruciating pain and died an execution that is beyond our comprehension and even our ability to stomach a true and real description of. It is beyond even culture's ability to be able to comprehend how heinous a crime against someone that was ever committed, and no one disputes that it happened. Historians, scientists, this is
well documented.
A well-documented death where Jesus pioneered. He's the one who is worthy to follow because he went there for you.
So because he went on ahead, Paul then challenges us to fix our eyes on him. Yes. Eye on the prize, right?
Yep. He's saying, he's really setting up a following analogy.
Yeah.
That this is why we can run this race. This is why we can follow the pioneer and why we can trust him, because it's not an easy route that he calls us to. In fact, Jesus actually said at one time, take up your cross and follow me. Those were the words recorded multiple times. Jesus heard by people saying that and the people he taught, and recorded by Matthew and recorded by Luke and recorded by, take up your cross and follow me. That is the idea that it's kind of this calling to a very, very hard calling.
Yeah.
And so that I would actually be willing to follow that kind of pioneer, that's scary. But he is the perfecter of our faith. In other words, he is the one who knows exactly what you need. And sometimes trials and difficulties are going to be a part of that road when you follow him. So that's not an easy race that the author of Hebrews is calling us to.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, but the pioneer and the perfecter, being Jesus, is someone that you can follow, you can fixate on, and he will get you through.
Now, I'm sure I wouldn't be alone. There'd probably be many viewers that would kind of hear what you're saying there and then go, okay, typically if you fixate on something, you can see it.
Yeah.
I could see that goal. I could see the end of the race and so forth. How do we fixate on someone that we can't even see in 2019?
Great.
Especially with all the other things we got to pay attention to.
So true for me too. And I preach this every week, and I get fixated on all kinds of things.
Like the Eagles, but we won't hold that against them right now. We'll just let that one go.
Just for the record, it wasn't Parky's fault, okay? Chicago fans, okay? My mom's a Chicago fan. She was born and raised in Chicago. The Cubbies, the
that was
Bears.
Amazing, though, by inches.
By inches, but
yes.
The Eagles rookie lineman got his fingertips on it. They proved it. Pretty cool.
Him.
Anyway, we could fixate on a team. We could fixate on a hobby. We can fixate on my own desires. I can fixate on my business. I could fixate on money. I could fixate on a relationship. I could fixate on a relationship I don't have. I could fixate on all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And the author of Hebrews is saying, listen, I want you to know that you can trust the pioneer, the one who's gone there before you. You can trust the perfecter, the one who knows what you need and will get you through the trial. And you can fixate on him. And I use this relation to this in life. I think whatever you fixate on life determines your legacy. Whatever you fixate on life, you think about it. If business is what you fixate on life, when you get to the end of your life, your kids aren't going to say, well, he fixated on us. No one at the end of their life is going to say, oh, you know, I'm so glad I fixated on money or fixated on my business or fixated on... It's going to be really who you impacted, right? It's going to be about what you did in life that lasts, not the things that were temporary. And so fixing our eyes on Jesus is determining a legacy that will never go away. So when we say living in legacy, when Jesus, who is still alive, who is the pioneer and the perfecter of our faith, I know we're beyond a sermon, but I'm getting kind of preachy right now. But you know, if he is the one that we fixate on, then the legacy we build never goes away. He still lives in heaven. Heaven's never going away. Jesus was the same yesterday, today, and forever. He was before all things and in all things. Paul said in Colossians, to the church at Colossians, he is in all things, and by him all things exist. that is the kind of legacy that lives on forever. So anything that you do that is Jesus related, practically speaking, anything that you do then in your life that is Jesus related, that is kingdom related, doesn't just last in this world, it actually continues forever.
Another time you brought up that we are really, especially to fixate on Jesus, is in the middle of storms, struggles, the challenges that come our way.
Yeah.
And you use the example of Peter stepping out onto the water
Yeah.
and walking on water. Can you describe for that a little bit more and how that may, what we can take away from it to as concrete ways to keep fixated on Jesus
Yeah.
in the midst of such storms?
Yeah, in fact, one of the followers of Jesus who's been written and quoted and over again a million times is Matthew. Matthew, whose life was changed completely, was a person who abused the people of his day in taxes, and who Jesus changed his life, and now he fixates his eyes on Jesus. He actually records the story in a beautiful way of Jesus in his own trial and his own need, sending the disciples out, and then Jesus walks on water to come find them in the midst of a storm. And Peter gets out of the boat, or he says to Jesus, calls and says, "Hey, if it's really you, then tell me to come out to you."
Careful what you ask for, Peter.
Yeah. So I love Peter. He's just like me. He just talks before he thinks, and so he just blurts this out, and Jesus is like, "Come out."
Okay.
So I don't know if he didn't want to say, he wanted to save face in front of his buddies or what, but I mean, the guy was bold. He steps out of the boat and he miraculously walks on water. And we're going to go through trials. Listen, Jesus sent the boat out knowing there was a storm. He sent them into the storm. So for anybody who's out there who believes that, oh, if I become a Christian, then there's no storms, boy, this really messes with your theology or what you believe or what the Bible teaches, because Jesus is the one who sent them there.
Yeah.
He sent them into the storm, but the difference is that Jesus was also the one who joined them there.
Yeah.
And if you're going through a storm right now, Jesus doesn't just send you there, he joins you there. He comes to you in the storm. And Peter put his eyes on Jesus and miraculously walked on water. And then what happened? As soon, the Bible records, Matthew records it, who followed Jesus and who witnessed it.
Yeah.
An eyewitness records the fact that Peter was doing great, literally walking on water to Jesus, but then he looked around and saw the wind and the waves and all these things. He doesn't even record the waves, just says he sees the wind, which tells me that he's seeing waves and the impact
all the
of
turmoil and everything.
And all of a sudden, he takes his eyes
what am I doing?
off of Jesus. And now his life doesn't look so miraculous anymore. It looks like my life most of the time. Because I get into trials, and I'm so fixated on the trials. And he took his eyes off of Jesus and put his eyes on the trial of the storm. And suddenly he began to sink. And like most of us, he cries out in the midst of need and says, "Save me." And Jesus reaches out and grabs him and saves him and walks him to the boat. And when he steps into the boat, Matthew records, eyewitness, it calmed the storm instantly.
Wow.
So Jesus joins us in the storm, and I wish there weren't going to be storms, but he already knows there are, and he's going to send you into them.
Yeah.
But isn't it amazing that, I wish this weren't true. I wish I would fix my eyes on Jesus without trials. But when do you call on God? There's no atheist in a foxhole, right? So, hey, I don't know if you're out there, but if you are, please, now would be the time to show up. For whatever reason, crisis has a way of focusing our attention on something beyond ourselves because yourself is not enough.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is the one who waits in those moments for us to call out. And he's not just waiting in those moments for us to call out, he's ready to grab us. And I said it Sunday, I think it's so true. One of the reasons Peter could be saved by Jesus is because he was near to him.
Yeah.
He invited him into, he's the one who stepped out of the boat to walk to him. So if you're on a pathway and you're pursuing Jesus and you're going through a trial right now, or a huge crisis at work, or a huge crisis in your family, it's beyond you. You need something far beyond you. And that's sometimes what we need in trials. That's where Jesus becomes the perfecter of your faith. He knows that we need to be refocused. And if we would just cry out to Him, that's the focus of prayer. If we would just cry out to Him, He's there to help.
So we know, therefore, Jesus is what we're supposed to keep our eyes on as we journey towards Him and so forth. And so Paul tells us in that verse, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So not only are the challenges and storms a potential threat to our ability to focus, but even the markings marked out for us, I wish it was marked out for us. How do we... without physical lane and mileage markers, Shane, in our journeys of life, what did Paul mean? Certainly he knew there weren't going to be like, hey, Jim, hey, Shane, turn here. This is where God wants you to go. What are we supposed to do with this metaphor of these markers? How can we be aware of them and find our path, especially when our direction is supposed to change?
Yeah, and I'll go with your assumption that Paul wrote Hebrews. I actually agree with you. There's a debate on who wrote the book of Hebrews. Most people, there are a majority of theologians who think it's Paul. I think Paul's focus wasn't a race marked out for us, as in, I'll tell you exactly where to turn.
Okay.
Although there is an aspect of that, and to get into it, because Paul talks a lot about the part of God that is the Holy Spirit that lives in us. In fact, Paul said it this way, that it's Jesus who is in me that does these works and goes before me. So Paul is all the time talking about that. But I think also he's speaking more obviously, because we can theorize about the other, but it's really clear that he's saying, hey, the race marked out for you individually, every one of us has a race. In fact, God created every one of us unique. No person listening anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter where you are. Are you similar to somebody? Yes. You're in a family, you have those characteristics. If you've seen my three boys, you've seen me, okay? They look similar to me, but each one of them is very unique. Anyone who has children can tell you that. Every person in the world is unique. You may be a part of a certain culture or a certain country, or you may have similarities, but you are unique. In fact, you're exactly the way God made you. The psalmist David said that I was formed in my mother's womb, that even God was shaping me. Even then, He was creating the characteristics, the DNA of who I am. He knows exactly the way I'm supposed to be. So when Paul says, run your race, the race marked out for you, he's saying you have a unique race. And what we need to do is define that race for ourselves, what is unique about it, and then run it. Because when you're running somebody else's race, it's horrible.
Sure, yeah.
You know, some of you who grow up in a family business, and you hear this story over and over again, and the firstborn son who feels the pressure to take over that, or the next one, or the first one rebels, and so the second middle child is the one who has to take over or be the peacemaker. And we have these all dynamics of family dynamics that teach us that the pressure of running someone else's race is difficult. A child who takes on their parents' faith but never makes that faith their own runs the race of their family, their parents, rather than their own race. And until they can make it their race, they're not going to run it. Because let me tell you, this is not an easy race. It's tough.
Yeah.
So you better find your race and make sure you're running your path that's marked out for you.
Okay, very good. Shane, I think we have a viewer question that has come in as well. So, Nikki, what is that?
Alrighty, it says everyone is familiar with the footprints poster, ...
Yes.
Would you encourage us to study our past to see evidence of walking in legacy?
Okay, so the footprints poster.
Yeah.
Should we be encouraged to review our past?
Absolutely. In fact, I think the footprints poster gives a picture, if you've never seen it, if you're the one person in the world who hasn't seen that, then it shows two sets of footprints, and looking back, there were times that there were one, and those were the times that in our faith, those who believe, that would interpret that beautiful picture worth 1,000 words of how many times Jesus carried me.
Yeah.
That Matthew 14 demonstrates this as Matthew records the story of the storm and Peter sinking and being saved by Jesus, how Peter miraculously ends up back in the boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can look back in my life. In fact, I would encourage you to, great question, because I would encourage you to look back through the past and see the times that I've been carried. In fact, if you're honest, there's probably some of you listening right now that shouldn't even be here. The fact that you're alive today is a miracle. Mm-hmm. You can see times where he carried you, put you in the boat, he calmed the storm, he brought you out of something that was great. Who did that? How did that happen? I think that happened for a reason. In fact, I think the reason was so that you could find your race, and your race wasn't done yet. Those who God's taken home to heaven, that was the end of their race. That was the time that they crossed the finish line. Mm-hmm. But it's up to you now to look back through your past and interpret through the times that Jesus has carried me, and believe now for the future that he can do so, and he did so for a reason, so that you could find your race.
Does this concept of running a race and the path that each of us has individually, does it have sort of corporate or community implications as well? So like WEAG as a church body, no doubt has its own unique purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for us, we have to find what our lane is.
Okay.
Stay in your lane is about discovering your lane.
Yeah.
There are things that make your business unique. There are things that make your organization unique. Any successful business understands that specialization spells success. If you find that unique characteristic that you offer that nobody else has, if you want to create a great product, create something, answer a need, mm-hmm. answer the question. Why do people need this? Mm-hmm. I think as a church, we're answering the same question. How can we answer the need of our world? And how can we uniquely tell the story of Jesus in the way that only West End Assembly of God can tell it?
Yeah.
We're wrestling with that as a church. And every organization, every business, every nonprofit, you need to wrestle. What's your lane? Stay in your lane. God has a lane for you, and it's unique to you.
So we got our destination, we got our journey, and we're the last part here, in that verse that we read at the beginning, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sins that so easily entangles. So to get started, mm-hmm. we got to throw off some weight, right? Is that what you meant by that verse when you dug into that?
I'm always amazed at the Richmond Marathon every year. You see the people who are running with the backpacks, and the military men and women who are running with backpacks and filled with rocks. Uh-huh. And it's hard enough to run 26.2 miles. Put 50 pounds of rocks on you. I don't get it.
That's crazy.
But that, to them, it's just too easy. I want to make it harder, maybe. Yeah. But in this kind of a race, if I were saying to those people, hey, there's a lot of money on the line, and you are running the race to win it, mm-hmm. which actually the Apostle Paul uses to the church at Corinth. Mm-hmm. He says, don't run the race as somebody who's going to not win it. Run to win. Fight to win. Well, if that were the case, then you'd want to throw off every weight. Mm-hmm. You might even be finally encouraged to lose some weight. I don't know. You'd want nothing standing in the way. You'd want to do everything you could do to win it. He's saying there are a lot of things that distract us. Mm-hmm. And throw off everything. Get everything out of the way. Focus on this. I know I use sports a lot, but I've always, one of the things that's I admire about pro athletes is the fact that that's their job.
Yeah.
That's their focus. And it would be so amazing, wouldn't it? To be paid to have fun. But they throw off every distraction. Their life is very simplistic. Mm-hmm. They don't eat for fun as much as eat for fuel. They don't do things within that sport for fun as much as to fuel them to get better, to improve, to constantly be tweaking and on their journey. There's an aspect of simplification in running this race that says clear out every single distraction. And life is so that way. We have tons of distractions.
Yeah.
And the second part is more than distraction.
Yeah.
But he's saying, first off, throw off every weight that hinders you.
Would that be like our past?
It could
or
be
our
anything.
prejudices
It
or
could
something?
be. It could be anything that gets in the way of you running to walking in faith with Christ. So if something's hindering, a group of friends that's hindering you, a group of a job that I've talked to people who work 7 days a week and who can't spend any time with their family. How is that what God would want for you? And how is that a good thing? And does that mean you just quit your job? No, it means you work really hard to find another one while you still have that one that throws off the weight and gets that so you can run the race that God has for you, even if you had to make less money, or even if you had to refocus, or if you had a relationship that was toxic and it was polluting what you're supposed to be doing, or even if you had money that you were making illegally, or now we get into the second step, because it's one thing to be distracted, Paul says, get rid of anything that distracts you.
Right.
But the second layer of that, right, was the sin part.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says,
Yeah.
and get rid of every sin that entangles you. Because distraction is, I'm just constantly hit by distraction. Sin is where distraction becomes destruction.
Okay.
When I was distracted by the fact that, I didn't know I needed my budget busters of comparison. So we talked about that Sunday,
Yes.
The comparison, S-I-N.
That was creative.
Yeah,
Yes.
Not really. It wasn't that hard to come up with, but, and probably every preacher in the world has used it. So, but I do think that's what happens, is comparison becomes comparison because it starts off as a distraction, but it becomes an entanglement. It starts off like, wow, holy smokes, look at this house, look at this kitchen, boy, I saw they renovated again. Oh my gosh, they're on vacation again.
Yeah.
To, how can they afford that? To, man, oh man, must be nice. To starting to draw me into a destructive behavior. Maybe I start to talk about them negatively. I start to think about them negatively. Or I want that so bad, I start to make poor financial decisions.
Why do they deserve it? Not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm somehow in this massive injustice because I don't have a new car.
Right. Right.
So it becomes from distraction to destruction, and that's where sin begins to take over in my life. And I made an easy comparison. There are some really hard ones using comparison as a potential destructor, but there are many more. There are many gateways to things in life that start off as distractions but become destructive. You know what they are in your life. And I think our role is to find those. And if we really want to find our lane and we really want to live in legacy, then we need to stop the distractions and start getting a way to fixate our eyes on Jesus. And maybe if that's okay, maybe that's where we could close. Maybe some practical things about that.
Yeah, yeah. I do have a question of, it seems like, so it says in the verse to throw these things off. This whole notion of throw means really get it away from you. But it seems like that's so difficult to do at the same time.
Yeah.
Why do we hang on to some of these things?
Well, I think we have a choice because they're hit us.
Okay.
You don't have a choice of what's thrown in front of you.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Some of the things you have to dodge. And that's part of our world. I mean, you can't be on social media without being flooded with other people. So if you struggle with comparison, and then that becomes entanglement to you, and it becomes destructive for you, and you start to look at yourself negatively because you're looking at that, then change the flow of your comparison. Stop looking at it. Start dieting your social media. If I was eating nothing, it's like that movie about the guy who ate nothing but McDonald's or whatever. Like, everyone knows that if you just pour into your body the worst possible food, I mean, I probably eat horrible, but I even know, like, my body has a mechanism in it. When I eat too much buttered popcorn, I get sick. But it would be like you just keep eating it. You know it's going to make you sick, but you go on social media and keep streaming and streaming and streaming and streaming it. the first suggestion I would have is stop the distraction. Stop. Start to regulate what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what I'm looking, what I'm talking about. Stop. If you start on a flow and you're with somebody who gets into a conversation and it goes negative, get out of it. Stop it. Stop allowing that. Also, too, thoughts that are thrown at you. That's part of the answer to your question is because stuff's thrown at me. And also, thoughts come into my head. If we slow down and we stop and we go, hold on, who says that? Does God say that? I'd never look good in that. I don't think I'm so fat. I'm so fat. I mean, or I'm so horrible. I'm the worst. Does God say that? How does God look at you? If we start to stop for a second and ask a question at least of the thoughts we're having. Pastor Dave talked about that the last Sunday of our year.
Yep.
And how if we change our thoughts, we can change our actions. If we change our action, we change our emotion. We change our emotion, change, so I mean, it's like, okay, change. If you want to change your mind first. Start there. And
just 90 seconds at a time.
That's right. If we stop, and then we got to start.
Yeah.
We have to replace it with something. Paul talks about this, to put off. He says throw it off, and then put something on. The Apostle Paul was so great at always talking about the church at Ephesus. He talked about this continually. Church at Galatia, he talked about it. He sent these letters to them and said, put off the old, put on the new. Stop something, start something. What a great time of year to talk about that. We all talk about it in our diets, right? Yeah. Stop eating one thing, start eating healthier, stop laying on the couch and start working out, all that. We get it when it comes to the way we look or the way we feel. But more importantly, our soul. Yeah. And taking care of our soul and starting to flow. We just did the great deal to do is our family just did a YouVersion Bible app Bible study together. And each month we're going to just do this 30-day challenge to each other on the YouVersion Bible app. Craig Rochelle and Life Church created this amazing app. It's gone millions upon millions of people have downloaded it. Yeah. It's a great app to use. Have it on your phone. You can share it with other friends. You can invite people to be on that. Right now, my boys and I are doing a devotion together, and you can make comments in it and start something. Start something that's feeding your mind, that is out of this world, so to speak. And I would say start reading some things from God. Start listening to what God says. We hear what everybody else says. Let's diet some of the things that we hear from the world and start to enter in some of the things we hear from God. And it's really a diet for the soul. We talk about fasting. That's what a fast is. It's a diet for the soul. It's stopping something so that I'll focus more and fix my eyes more on Jesus. Less on something else and more of God. Less of myself sometimes. So stop, start, and then set some goals. Okay. This year, set a goal to read the Bible in a year. You've picked it apart forever. Why don't you read it? Before you do it, pick it.
And you don't have to do it alone. You can do it in the app.
You can do it in the app.
Join other people.
You can join other people and do the 1 Year Bible. We do it all the time on the WEAG app. You can download the WEAG app, and we've got it right on there. You've got the reading of the day. We have all kinds of ways to share that. In today's modern world, you have great things that are out there. Social media isn't all bad. It's used for great things. Yes. So find those great things and use them and set some goals. And then lastly, they're all S's. So stop, start, set, and share. And then share it with a group of people. You can put it out there, and you can do that on the YouVersion app. You can use all kinds of tools. Right. Share it on your social media. What if we shared positive messages? That would be something new.
That's right. Cat videos still too. The cat videos are fine.
Cat videos
Keep doing cat videos.
Keep doing the videos.
But then share this.
Yeah, share something positive. You can share this right at the end of this.
Absolutely.
If you know somebody who's struggling, go through some trials right now, say, hey, maybe this is a great discussion for you.
Yeah. Well, Shane, thank you so much for kicking off the new year with such a message that can help us stay in our lane. So we've got what we need now. Throw off the weight. fixate on Jesus and run the race that,
If you've
that God
Googled
set
that
before
commercial
us.
by now, I can tell it and it'll be funny. Stay in your lane, bro.
Stay in your lane. So where does stay in the lane take us into week 2 of Living Legacy?
Yeah, so week 2 is this. It's about, there are legends, and what do we do about the past? And I think our culture is really self-focused a lot, myself included. I think best about myself more than anyone else. I care about my needs the most. But it helps. And in Scripture, you see it over and over again. In fact, if you read in the Old Testament, one of the authors of the Old Testament who wrote the Pentateuch, the 5 largest books in the Old Testament, were written by Moses. And Moses, over and over and over again, reminds the nation of Israel about their past, and so what can we learn? Why does he do that? And so this Sunday, we're going to start with dealing with living in legacy is recognizing the legends that have gone before me and building on that and learning from that, and how do I interact with them even today? So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Cool. Well, looking forward to that this Sunday. And for all of you that are able to watch that Sunday live, you'll be able to, of course, rewatch it again on demand afterwards and share it, as Shane said earlier. Share it. Well, thank you very much for tuning in and for watching either live or on demand. We'll hope to catch you next time, and have a blessed day.
Beyond a sermon.
Beyond a sermon.
I like
That's right.
it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Shane.
Appreciate it.